For you.
Yes, we will. And President Obama had a tough sell on his hands last night, convincing the American people it is worth it to continue the fight in Afghanistan. And in a tone some are calling strikingly similar to that of his predecessor, George W. Bush, President Obama invoked 9/11 6 times during that 33-minute speech.
It's important to recall why America and our allies were compelled to fight a war in Afghanistan in the first place. We did not ask for this fight.
We did not ask for this mission, but we will fulfill it.
Matt Latimer was a speechwriter for George W. Bush during the final years of his presidency. He's also the author of Speechless: Tales of a White House Survivor. Matt, thanks for joining us. What is your review of the president's speech last night?
Well, it's funny you should say that, because as I was listening to it, I remembered the speech sounded very familiar. In fact, I wrote this speech many times in the Bush administration. And the language was even strikingly similar to what the President Bush said over on Iraq. And I found the speech to be fine. But, you know, one of the things that President Obama left unsaid was, this may not work. Iraq is different. Iraq and Afghanistan are different.
Come on, Matt. Do you really expect him in that speech to say, and by the way, this might not work?
Well, no,
we didn't hear the previous president say that it might not work either.
Well, actually, no. I think the President Bush did try to be cautionary. You know, things could get different. I mean, things could change. And in Afghanistan in 18 months, the situation could be worse. President Karzai may not be in power anymore. Who knows what could happen? And I don't think that in 18 months we can say, you know, if Afghanistan is still a disaster, we're just going to just take off and leave. And I think the American people have to start getting prepared for the possibility this may go longer than we expected it will.
Yeah, and it's already obviously gone longer than anyone expected,
right,
in that it is 8 years later and nothing really has been accomplished. But let me read to you what was in the Washington Post regarding this. It says, Mr. Obama's troop decision is both correct and courageous. Correct because it is the only way to prevent a defeat that would endanger this country and its vital interests, and courageous because he's embarking on a difficult and costly mission that is opposed by a large part of his own party. What do you make of that assessment? Oh,
I absolutely agree with it. This is the most important decision President Obama, I think, has made in his entire presidency. And I applaud him for it. It was a tough decision. And what he's going to face is opposition not from the Republican Party, but from the Democratic Party, which is a majority, of course.
Was it a courageous decision?
I think it was, absolutely. You know, I don't agree with the timeline for withdrawal, which is a notification to our enemies of when we're leaving, but I do think it was a gutsy thing to do when most of your party's against you.
Well, get back to the timeline, because many are noting that, yes, there was a timeline, but the president did not say on this said date we are leaving. This is the desired plan here, but this was not a firm, hard, you know, no matter what the situation is on the ground, we're out of there.
Right, but I think people are going to have that date in their minds as the time that we're actually going to leave, because he's made this date in our minds. And things are, as I say, wars are not predictable. You can't sort of lecture people like a professor would about, you know, here's how this is going to happen, because anything could happen in a war. Wars are chaotic by nature, as you know.
Right, right. Did he need to be more rallying, though? I mean, there are others who are yes, he was not as specific as some would like. He was, I think it was Howard Feynman last night who said it was a grim assessment. Did there need to be some type of rally cry, as we saw with the president you worked for, George W. Bush?
Yeah, I did think there needed to be something more inspirational and more passionate about what he was talking about. I did find the speech rather lifeless in a way, and you know, it's an uncomfortable situation to address the troops, because the troops, you don't want to look like the troops are your props for a political speech, and the troops don't know whether they should applaud or not. And of course, I don't think West Point is an enemy camp, as somebody said, but it's just I
think that somebody explained what he meant by that comment.
Good,
but
good.
On that note, Matt, I'm going to let you go. Matt Latimer, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. Up next, Tiger